class is for probably under 90 minutes or over 90 minutes, whatever case maybe. So we're finishing at about 9, correct? Yeah, because the schedule says when the class begins, but it doesn't say when it ends. So it can be ananta, unending, right? Okay.
Hours class, if that's okay, or whatever time is appropriate.
Sorry?
You can do whatever you feel is fit.
Okay, so I can torture you for a while. Okay. All right, so we'll be looking at Bhagavad Gita as a whole. And actually, since you haven't attended Bhagavad Gita crash course, maybe we could introduce you to the slideshow as well. Because it makes it a little bit more exciting. Where is that? Okay. Let me see if you can see my screen. I think I need to share my screen. I'm still learning how to operate this thing. Maybe you can help me to figure out how to share the screen. I kind of vaguely remember.
At the bottom of your screen, there should be a thing called share screen.
Share screen, okay.
And then you can share the whole screen, and then whatever you show on the screen will be displayed for everyone.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little confusing here how to do it. Okay. Okay, I'm trying to, okay, share screen is here. And oh yeah, okay, yeah. So can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Bhagavad Gita as it is?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Even Sagar Swami could figure it out. You can be proud of me. All right, so Bhagavad Gita as it is, and it is translated and explained by Srila Prabhupada very nicely, and hopefully you can learn Bhagavad Gita better, regardless of whether you read it or not yet, or not fully. Firstly, I need to figure out how to work. Okay. Got this slideshow working. Okay, so we'll start with the very end of Bhagavad Gita, because oftentimes the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is, or conclusion of any book is at the very end. So we'll be looking what Bhagavad Gita has to say about studying Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita speaks about everything, even about the importance of studying Bhagavad Gita. So what are we doing right now? And so this is Sanskrit. This is chapter 9, final chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Adhyashyate chaya imam dharmyam sambadmavayo gyanaya gyanatena istasyamiti me matihi. And I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours worship me by his intelligence. So a specific Sanskrit term which is used in the original text is jnana yagena. We know what is jnana, that is knowledge, and yagena comes from yagya. Actually, it's very interesting that the word worship used in Bhagavad Gita mostly does not refer to just religious ritual. It refers to sacrifice. And we will learn that sacrifice is not a mere religious ritual, but a foundational principle of human life. Because if sacrifice would be just a mere ritual, normally we understand yagya means fire, priest, fruits, grains offered to the fire, ghee. We're not doing that. Nevertheless, Krishna says one who studies Bhagavad Gita he's performing jnana yagya. Understand yagya is much more than just a mere ritual. And we will come back to this point because this is the fundamental point from which Bhagavad Gita starts, and it is again highlighted at the end of Bhagavad Gita. So let's go to the next topic. And so once we understood what we're doing when we study Bhagavad Gita, then the next thing is to look at the introduction of Srila, and that Bhagavad Gita presents 5 main topics. And so these are the topics. Karma means activity, work. Kala means time. Ishvara refers to controller. Jiva, soul. And Prakriti, nature. And we kind of separated these 5 into 2 categories, right? Because the 3 last ones are the primary categories and the top ones are secondary categories. And so if you want to understand the correlation between them, so this is how it looks like. Ishvara, Krishna, he is on the top because he is the Supreme Lord. And then he is influencing the entire world with Kala, with time, right? He's influencing both Jivas and Prakriti, nature. And Jiva is connected to Prakriti by a medium of karma, right? Jiva is acting and Prakriti is reacting. So this is, I think, very relevant for us in our present day situation, because right now we see the reaction by Prakriti, right? Named coronavirus. And what was the action? The action was trying to abuse Prakriti, because jivas in human form of life became so proud, at least some jivas, that they started thinking themselves to be lords of the world, dominating every other species, right? And then they decided that we got on the very top of the food chain, not for the sake of being vegetarians, and we want to eat anything and everything. We know that especially Chinese are really expert at this. They say that Chinese can eat anything which is on the ground except cars, and I suppose bicycles as well. In the sky, everything except airplanes, and on the water, everything except boats. Everything else they can eat. And we know that where the coronavirus started, from animal market, right? This disease was spread by animals. It's not clear if it was caused by close proximity with animals or by eating animals, but the part which does not give any doubt is it started with bats, and bats normally live in the forest, but now bats are living amongst humans. Why? Because their natural habitat was destroyed. Massive deforestation, and it's a big, big issue on the planet, deforestation. And so why the forests are cut down with such a rampant speed? The reason is very simple. To have land for growing and for grazing animals. So if you're vegetarian, basically your backyard, if you manage it properly, is enough to feed your whole family, provide your whole family with food. Of course, you need to know how it is done. You need to know the art or science, as with everything. But the idea is for human consumption, for vegetarian consumption, there is and is required for the whole family. But if you want to eat meat, then massive amounts of land are required for animal husbandry, as they call it. And so basically, massive deforestation is directly linked to meat eating. And deforestation caused coronavirus. Same, just this unchecked desire to enjoy in a very primitive way. I mean, eating is very primitive type of enjoyment. Now the whole planet got this problem. Hopefully they will learn from it. But definitely it makes them very humble now. With all their science, with all their army and tanks and airplanes and submarines, the whole world is on the knees or flat on the ground just because of the tiny little virus they can't even see. Tiny little thing puts the entire planet down. There is a lockdown. It's amazing, right? So how can Prakriti react to Jiva's action? We can see practically, right? And Krishna manifests in a form of time. And it's time for everything. So now it's purification time. because we are at the dawn of the golden age, and for this reason, everyone has to be pure or dead. Two options. You become either pure or dead. There is no third option. You cannot continue like this is what the earth says right now to us. Okay? So this is how they're all connected. Ishvara, Jiva, and Prakriti are three personalities, and Kala and Karma are the via medias for their interaction, right? I hope it's clear. So we'll move on. The next point will be looking at the contents of Bhagavad Gita. And so Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters, and they are divided into three main parts. First part, equal part. Each part has 6 chapters. So first part is called Karma Yoga until chapter 6. Then second part, starting with chapter 7, is called Bhakti Yoga, and third part is called Jnana Yoga. So these are chapters 13 to 18. All right. So I hope many of you know this already, so we won't be dwelling on this too long, because we'll be going through the chapters more in details. So we'll run a little Bhagavad Gita counter from 1 to 5. If you learn these 5 points, you can explain what is Bhagavad Gita to anybody in 5 minutes or less. So 1 stands for one special scripture spoken by the Supreme One, Supreme Lord, and that is Krishna, which is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10:8, Aham Sarvasya Prabhava, and many other places as well. Krishna claims to be the Supreme Lord, and up to date, this claim hasn't been refuted. Okay, so people believe in prophet, people believe in God, but you ask them who is God, only Krishna claimed to be the Supreme Lord. Okay, so next, point number 2, what is Bhagavad Gita? It is conversation between two friends, Krishna and Arjuna, who are like two birds. The analogy is given in one of the purports, sitting on the branches of the same tree. These are two souls in the same body. Tree is like a body, and birds are like souls. One individual soul and one super soul. So Arjuna represents individual soul, and Krishna represents super soul. And these two are always connected. And the connection in Sanskrit is called yoga. That's why Bhagavad Gita is Yoga Shastra. The entire Bhagavad Gita is teaching us the science of yoga in depth. Without details, just principles of yoga are outlined in 3 sections of Bhagavad Gita: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. And all other types of yoga, like Hatha Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, etc., they fall under one of these categories. Okay. So point number 4, very interesting. Of course, there are many benefits from applying Bhagavad Gita, because we might be wondering, why should I bother studying Bhagavad Gita? I think coronavirus is catching up with me now. Is there any benefit? And Bhagavad Gita is explaining that there are many benefits. And the last verse of Bhagavad Gita explains 4 benefits which come if we apply Bhagavad Gita in our lives. very famous verse, the 1878. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Krishna says, Yatra, in that place, there is Yogeshwara Krishna, and Yatra, in that place where there is Partha, Dhanurdhara, Arjuna, Tatra, in that place, will definitely be Shri, opulence, Vijaya, victory, which can also be interpreted as success, Bhuti, extraordinary influence, and Niti, which is morality or purity. And point number 5, topics of Bhagavad Gita, we've already mentioned Karma, Kala, Ishvara, Jiva, and Prakriti. Okay. So now, the next question is how Bhagavad Gita is relevant in our lives. Because Bhagavad Gita was spoken more than 5,000 years ago, and it was spoken at the battlefield, and it was spoken to Arjuna, who is the member of royal dynasty, and was spoken by the Supreme Lord directly. So we might be wondering how Bhagavad Gita is relevant, because I'm living in 21st century. Planet was a warfield now, but the difference is that they are fighting with invisible but invincible enemy. That's the scariest part, right? You cannot see the enemy and you can do nothing about the enemy. So everyone has to surrender or die, one or the other. And so, but yeah, we might say, oh, we are not the members of royal dynasty, and Arjuna was lucky. He was in the chariot together with Krishna. And so Krishna was talking to him directly. But this very enlightening purport by Srila Prabhupada helps us to understand that Bhagavad Gita is as relevant for us as it was for Arjuna. So he explains, he is Paramatma, or the super soul present in everyone, as the supreme guidance, and therefore he is already the chariot. When he therefore exhibits himself as chariot driver of Arjuna, there is no change in his exalted position. It's the power of devotional service only that demonstrates him as the chariot driver or the messenger. So, chariot is the body. That, again, chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita speaks about it. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam. No. Yeah, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam. Yantra Rudani Maya. He says that we are situated within the yantra, within the machine. And what is the machine? That's the material body. Material body is very complicated machine. Some people are very proud of it. They have no idea what works. Most people, they cannot even tell, especially young people, they cannot even tell on which side of their belly there is a liver and on which side there is a spleen, unless it will malfunction. They will not even know. There are probably thousands, if not more, of the different processes which are happening in the body, which we are not even aware of, what to speak of controlling it. Yeah. So body is such a complicated machine, and to think that we are controlling this body, it's like everyone can say, yeah, I am a multitasker because I can do listening, watching, thinking, breathing, heart beating, and digesting food at the same time, right? So it's amazing, right? How gifted we are. But it's an illusion. We're not controlling this machine. Of course, I might think I'm controlling, I want to lift my hand and my hand goes up. I want to put it down, it goes down. So it seems like I'm in control of this body. But if my hand is paralyzed, that's it. I can do nothing. And so we can see that very proud people who are thinking they're controlling their bodies just a few days ago, now they cannot even breathe without medical assistance. So that really helps us to understand that we're not the controllers at all. We can control nothing in this world. But Maya, because we desire that so much, we desire to pose as gods and masters of this world. Maya says, okay, you can be in that illusion if you wish. But we understand that it's Paramatma. The only thing we're doing, we're sitting in this body, in the region of the heart, and we have desires, and Paramatma is those desires. I remember in my A levels, and my father, I wanted to drive a car. How much the small child can drive the car? Even he's, he's not even tall enough to look at the windshield, and like he wouldn't even reach the pedals at the bottom. And so what my father was doing, he would sit me on his lap and I would hold the steering wheel, and we would go. I remember some kind of dysfunctional, like old airport, and we would just, he would drive on the tarmac and I would, pretend that I'm in control. But actually my father would drive, right, the car. But I was holding the steering wheel and I was enjoying this process. Because in my illusion, I was thinking, I'm a driver now. I was only maybe 8 or 9 years old, or maybe even younger, who knows. And so, yeah, the Supreme Lord is the driver of our chariot. This body is the chariot. And he is also counsel of all living beings. And so that's his eternal position. But out of his mercy, he demonstrated himself to Arjuna externally also. That's the of his devotional service. Otherwise, it's his eternal position, and therefore we can understand that we are in the position which is very similar to Arjuna. We are next to the Lord, sitting on the chariot, and the Lord is driving our chariot, and he's ready to give us his guidance if we are willing to learn it. And the yeah, he is manifesting himself externally also for our guidance, as long as we cannot hear him in the heart as spiritual master. But the idea is even training by the spiritual master is meant to help us to be guided by the super soul in the heart. That's why it's explained that the best disciple is the one who is not waiting for the guru to give him orders. It is the one who knows what guru wants before even guru tells him. And where this intelligence is coming from, obviously Bhagavad Gita is explaining, it's coming from Paramatma, right? Okay, moving on. That's Paramatma in the heart. This is how Paramatma looks like. When Jadurani, the early artist in ISKCON, was asking Srila Prabhupada, oh yeah, Prabhupada told her that we require we need you to make a painting of Paramatma. And she said, okay, but how Paramatma looks like? And Prabhupada said, oh, it's very easy. You just go to Himalayas and you meditate for 10,000 years without moving, and then you will see Paramatma. She became a little shocked. Prabhupada, I can explain to you how Paramatma looks like. So by the mercy of spiritual master, you can shortcut wasting your 10,000 years in Himalayas. So he explained to her exactly how it looked like. And then she made this painting, this drawing. So now, finally, we come to the first verse of Bhagavad Gita. And what we'll be doing, we're not looking at chapters yet. It's again Bhagavad Gita at a glance. We'll be looking at first and last chapter of first and last verse of Bhagavad Gita to see if there is any correlation, because it's like when you take book off the shelf, you normally look at the cover. There is a good proverb: do not judge book from the cover. But nevertheless, everybody does that. Everybody looks at the cover first. So before opening Bhagavad Gita, we'll look at the covering verses, the very first and the very last verse of Bhagavad Gita. So first verse is Dhritarashtra is addressing his secretary Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra uvacha dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yayutsavaha mamaka pandava chaiva kim akurbata Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in a place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? So, this is a very strange question, is it not? Like, people assembled at the place of Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, and what did they do? It's like they came there desiring to fight, and what they were doing there. I mean, did they start playing football or what? Or did they decided to take rest all of a sudden? Obviously, they came to fight. But it is very strange why Dhritarashtra is asking this question. But actual reason is that Dhritarashtra is more worried not about this fact. He knows that they will fight, but he wants to know what will be the outcome of the fight. And I will tell him, very last verse of Bhagavad Gita we've mentioned already. Yatra partho dhanuddaraha tatra srijayo bhutir dhruvani tirmatir mama. Wherever there is Krishna, master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Victory is mentioned. That means no chance for victory for Dhritarashtra's side. So that's the mature conclusion of the entire Bhagavad Gita. So, indirect question posed by Sanjay. Sorry, Dhritar. Now we're looking at the entire Bhagavad Gita at a glance, trying to understand how the translations of the chapters Sanskrit and how the chapters are connected to each other. But we have done introduction and we've spent quite some time on it. And so let's go a little bit slower and see if there are any questions. If anybody wants to ask, if everything is clear so far, you can unmute your microphone. And if you have any question, you can share with us. Was it question from Badri Narayan? No? What was it? Thumbs up. Okay, so no questions, right? So we move on. But interesting. Anyone's learning something new yourself? I hope so.
Yes, Maharaj, it's very interesting. The chariot driver analogy was quite interesting.
Okay.
And super soul and chariot driver.
Okay. Okay, let's see. We have something in the chat. Okay. And see only the slide, you see the window with participants. Can someone tell me, what do you see on your screen? Only slideshow or something else also?
Yeah, we can see the slideshow, yeah.
Only slideshow, nothing else?
Yeah. No, nothing.
Okay, that's good. All right, good. All right, so okay, good. Now let's go into more detailed overview of the chapters. And so these are the original names of the chapters. And so chapter 1 is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. We know Arjuna, what is yoga? What is Vishada? Vishada means grief moroseness, all these things, right? So it's very interesting. Bhagavad Gita starts, or sorrow, another word for Vishada. Arjuna started practicing yoga of sorrow in chapter 1. So there are so many different types of yoga, and every new type of yoga becomes very popular. So I was thinking maybe we should introduce yoga of sorrow also, because people feel sorry all the time for so many things, but we could help them to do it in a yoga style. But what was the point of Arjuna Vishada Yoga? We know that Arjuna was very sorry. He was aggrieved. Why? Because he realized that he had to fight with his own relatives and even teachers and kill them. So he was very aggrieved by that situation. But yoga means, even in his grief, he was next to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Lord was about to dispel his grief, which was based on illusory concept, right? So that's and the English name of the chapter is Observing the Armies at the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. So, because this was the circumstance when Arjuna felt aggrieved, right? So that's chapter 1 is just setting the scene. It's very much introductory chapter to Bhagavad Gita. And then second chapter is Sankhya Yoga, that's the Sanskrit title. And Srila Prabhupada translated it in English as Contents of the Gita Summarized. So Sankhya means to count, right? And so that's why Prabhupada says it's contents of Bhagavad Gita. And basically, chapter 2 is going through all the topics of Bhagavad Gita, mentions them all in a very concise way. Apparently, because Krishna wanted to give Arjuna the summary first and then elaboration. And by the way, this is a perfect way of teaching. Krishna is example in every respect, including teaching. And say, if any of you want to teach anything, the best way is to start with Sankhya, start with contents, and then say what you are planning to say, mention, right? Give them plan. Then second time you elaborate on the subject, and third time you highlight the most important points. And so this is exactly what Krishna is doing in here, because in chapter 2 he is summarizing the entire Bhagavad Gita. Then from chapters 3 to 17 he is elaborating on Bhagavad Gita, and chapter 18 he's highlighting most important points. That's why you will see that chapter 18, for example, makes two statements which are repeated from chapters 3 and 9. Very interesting. 3, 9, 18, right? You see the mathematically how Bhagavad Gita is perfectly calculated. One devotee actually wrote whole book on this subject, mathematical kind of how Bhagavad Gita is precise. that it even has golden line going through it from point mathematics and even physics. Anyway, we won't be going into that. But yeah, chapter 2 deals with so many topics, basically everything, but there is one topic which chapter 2 specifically elaborated in numbers, that is the soul. We're not the body, we're spirit souls. And it is very significant because Krishna helps us to understand that we are not the body, but spirit soul, way before he explains his own position as the Supreme Lord. And so it appears from the logic of Bhagavad Gita, the first thing we need to realize that we're not the body, but we're spirit souls. And only then we can really appreciate the fact that Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And we need to dedicate our life to serving him. And anyone who listens to Prabhupada or listens to Prabhupada classes regularly, and I hope it's most of you, and especially now during lockdown, we have full ability to listen to Prabhupada's classes every single day. And you know how much Srila Prabhupada highlighted this single point. We're not the body, we're spirit souls, practically in every class, right? Because it's really important point from which the whole Bhagavad Gita starts. And yeah, it's like foundation. Without foundation, you can build anything up. And so then he kind of summarized the whole Bhagavad Gita, briefly mentions all the subjects, but then Arjuna could not really relate to what Krishna was explaining, because basically in chapter 2, Krishna is telling Arjuna so many reasons he has to fight. You have to fight, you have to fight, you have to fight, you have to fight because of this and that. There are so many benefits, material, spiritual, you name it. But then in the end, the last 3 verses are very confusing, because Arjuna is saying that if you want to live peaceful life, you have to follow this path. So in 2 verses out of 3 last verses, he highlights the importance of peace. So it is 270 and 271 for your reference. He talks about Shanti. And this is what Arjuna wanted, Shanti, Shanti. I don't want to fight. I rather give it up without fighting, let those who want to enjoy, enjoy and control. I'm detached, so I want peace. And so then Krishna suddenly started talking about peace. And that kind of confused Arjuna, because he was thinking, he wants me to fight, but the conclusion was he wanted me to be in peace. And how can I peacefully kill people? Or does Krishna mean that the peace will be attained when everyone will be resting in peace? That's kind of confusing, right? And then the next chapter, which is Karma Yoga, and it's interesting, the first 6 chapters is Karma Yoga, and the elaboration on the subject starts from chapter 3, which is called Karma Yoga. And then this chapter starts with very challenging question. I mean, it's very interesting because in one sense, Arjuna already accepted Krishna as his guru, right? Shishyastaham Shadimam Tvam Prapannam, chapter 2. Please teach me. And then 3.1 starts with very challenging kind of a question. Tat kim karmani ghorimani yoja sikeshwa. Arjuna says, if you believe that the path of intelligence is better than the path of fruitive work, then why do you want me to be engaged or entangled in this ghastly warfare? He knew what kind of mess it will be at the Kurukshetra, because he is a Kshatriya. And then Krishna had to explain to him properly that Arjuna was thinking peace for himself and maybe for his family members, but Krishna wanted world peace, right? Krishna was thinking not just in terms of small group of people, family, but he was thinking how to benefit every living entity, right? And so, therefore, in chapter 3, he will be explaining these things more elaborately. So what is karma yoga? Karma yoga is the beginning of spiritual life. And Krishna explains to Arjuna that intelligence means you act intelligently, you act with full understanding. What are you doing and why you should be doing what are you doing? It's basically and how, right? How you should live your life. That actually 3 parts of Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga, are answering these 3 questions. Karma Yoga is answering the question what we should do. We should serve Krishna without any personal motivations, right? Depending on him. Bhakti Yoga means how we should do it with devotion, right? And Jnana Yoga means why should we be doing that, right? Because there is no other choice anyway. We're dependent on Krishna, and either we surrender to him voluntarily or we will have to surrender to him by pressed by the material nature. Again, as we see right now happening in the world, that every single measure failed. They tried to contain this thing and they can do nothing. And it's very, I just read one article online from very serious scientists. And they say, yes, the vaccine for coronavirus will be there. But most probably it will be there after the pandemic is over. And so I just put this, I had to put that on my Facebook. Scientists promised vaccine, but only after the pandemic is over, because it's so funny, right? Why anyone needs vaccine when pandemic is over? So it's like basically they signing up under the total inability to do anything. So everyone is realizing they are helpless in the hands of nature. And so, yeah, I think a lot of praying going on right now all over the planet, because, like people were enjoying, they had no time. Like Prabhupada says that spiritual life means simple living, high thinking. And my spiritual master says material life means very complicated living with no time to think, right? And yesterday, day before yesterday, yeah, we gave a class to the Leicester devotees, and I was specifically requested to talk on this topic because It's on everyone's mind now, right? Coronavirus. And so I have chosen a verse from first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 5, the instructions of Narad Muni to Srila Vyasadeva, text 18, very interesting and famous verse Prabhupada quoted number of times. And it starts, Tasyaiva hetat prayata kovido, nalapyate tad brahmatamu paryada. And this verse indicates that thoughtful and philosophically inclined persons should not be striving for any purpose which can be obtained in this universe, even if you go from top to the bottom, but only to that end which is beyond the universe, right? Because whatever is available in this world, you can gain automatically. The laws of karma will give you your joys and troubles. You don't have to strive for it, right? And so the interesting word in this particular text is COVID, COVID. And it's very interesting that this virus, scientists, they define as COVID-19, because CO stands for Corona, COVID, 19 is the year, last year when it started. So COVID in Sanskrit means thoughtful or philosophically inclined. So this is exactly what COVID-19 is doing. It makes everyone think. People had no time to think. Now they are in the lockdown and they have a lot of time to think, to reflect on their poor lives and whether they survive or not, and how the lives have to change. No matter how long it will last, no matter how many lives it will claim, one thing is absolutely certain. The humanity will be not the same 100%. So actually it's Krishna's blessing in disguise, because after such a thorough, not just purification, but purge, literally, after such a purge, everyone will come out from the other end completely different people. That's my promise. And so, yeah, that's a kind of preparation for the golden age of Lord Chaitanya, because everyone needs to learn, not the other way around. And so this is the greatest benefit of COVID-19. COVID, right? Vid, the root vid, stands for wisdom. Like you have vidura, right? Vidura literally means very wise. So vid is wisdom. So COVID, one who is thoughtful, one who is philosophically inclined, one who is pretty wise person. So this is what's happening right now. And so we can see that as Krishna's mercy, even though sometimes it might come in a sweet form or bitter form. This is pretty bitter form of the mercy, but sometimes medicine has to be bitter to the planet is very sick and it requires very bitter medicine for the healing. So this is what's have been provided to us. And so the back to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is basically the opening chapter of elaboration on Bhagavad Gita, because as we've mentioned, first chapter was introduction, second chapter is overview, but then from chapter 3, now we started talking, right? Now Krishna started elaborating on everything he wanted to tell Arjuna. And there are a number of important verses in that chapter, but one which Srila Prabhupada highlights is text 30 of the chapter 3, which we kind of reserve for later because yeah, it's kind of if you look at the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada says that this verse clearly indicates the purpose of the entire Bhagavad Gita. And so this verse is really powerful, even though not many devotees even take notice of it. But yeah, Krishna speaks about the purpose of whole Bhagavad Gita in this verse. Mai sarvani mani nyasa dhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudyasva vigata jvara. So he says, Mai sarvani karmani, dedicate all your activities unto me. And sannyas, give up everything which is not related to me. Adhyatma chetasa, focus your consciousness on me. Nirashir, nirmamo bhutva, and give up. Nirashir means any desire which is not connected to service of the Lord has to be given up. And nirmama, mama means claim for proprietorship. So nirmama means all claims for proprietorship have to be given up as well. And yudyasva vigatajvara. Then Krishna says you have to fight. And vigatajvara means giving up lethargy or giving up procrastination, etc. All these things. Lack of desire. So it's very interesting because this verse speaks about the four modes. Normally we know that there are three modes of nature, but actually there are four modes. And first one is Shuddha Sattva, purely serving Krishna. And that is indicated by the first line of the verse, Mai Sarvani Karmani. Fully dedicate all your activities unto me. That's pure devotional service. And Sannyasa Dhyatma Chetasa. Give up everything which is not related to my pure devotional service, and Adhyatma Chetas, and focus your mind fully on me. Actually, no, sorry, that Srila Prabhupada actually says Adhyatma Chetas with full knowledge of me. So knowledge is connected to goodness. So Krishna says knowledge or goodness have to be directed towards me. And Nirashir Nirmamo Bhutva, all these desires for gain and position, Asha and Mama, have to be given up. So that's mode of passion. Mode of passion is rejected. And Vigatajvara, giving up lethargy, giving up lack of desire for service. Have to be given up. So interesting. Krishna says has to dedicate oneself to service, and then the foundation for this service is knowledge. But then selfish motivations and lethargy has to be given up. Yeah. So chapter 4, Jnana Yoga, that chapter 4 is, yeah, actually, yeah, coming back to chapter 3, Also, a big topic, which we kind of didn't mention, uh, is that chapter 3 advocates yagya. And actually 330 is telling Arjuna what kind of yagya he is expected to do. He's expected to give up, to sacrifice all his selfish desires and lack of desire to follow Krishna's order, right? And fight. Fighting will be his yagya. And so, yeah, Krishna explains that in chapter 3 that by yagya, the whole universe is sustained. Ebam pravartita chakram nonuvartayati haya akhayu indriyaramo moksha partana jivati. That he says that this cycle of yagyas is maintaining the whole world universe, and therefore if someone is not following this principle of yagyas, then its life of such individual will be full of sin, very arama, very unhappy life, and moksha partana jivati, and of course such person will never be able to liberate himself from material conditions. So everyone has his own yagya to fulfill. And Krishna speaks another really powerful verse in the chapter 3, which is, at least the first half of this verse is repeated verbatim in chapter 18, and that is Shayan Swadharma Vigunan Paradharmatsvanushtitat. He says it's far better to discharge one's own duty perfectly than somebody else's duties imperfectly. So we need to engage our nature in Krishna's service in the same way as Arjuna did, right? So this is the indication here. And yeah, because one of the strongest messages of Bhagavad Gita is not to be attached to the fruits of one's work, right? That's been explained before. Now, how is it possible not to be interested in the fruits of the work? There is only one option, and that option is to do something which is natural for you. Then you will enjoy the process so much, you will not care what kind of fruits will come or not. You will be detached from fruits because the process itself gives you full satisfaction. And so this is the yagya. So chapter 3 is explaining the principle of yagya, but now how this principle is applied in different conditions, in different varnas and ashramas, that is explained in the next chapter, Jnana Yoga, which Srila Prabhupada left without giving a specific English translation. We'll understand. And so it's pretty complicated system, different types of sacrifices, different varnas and ashrams have to perform. And so how do we learn this complicated system? And then in text 34, it explains one has to approach a spiritual master. Famous verse. I'm sure many of you know this verse because this is, I think, compulsory for Bhakti program or disciples course. I hope it's also there. Tadvidhi pranipatana pariprashnana savaya upadekshante te jnanam gyaninastatva darshanaha. So just try to learn the truth by approaching spiritual master, real souls, and knowledge the truth. And so, of course, we are not kind of going more in details of every chapter, but if you've read Bhagavad Gita, if you want to know more of the details, you're very welcome to ask any questions. And so, moving on to chapter 5, which is Sannyas Yoga, and sometimes it says that Sannyas Yoga chapter 5, is kind of conclusion from both chapters 3 and 4, because this chapter is actually explaining what will be the primary result of performing sacrifices, right? That, chapter 3 tells us what we should do. We should do yagyas, we should sacrifice. Chapter 4 is explaining how we sacrifice according to our position. And chapter 5 says what will be the primary result of the sacrifice. And primary result of the sacrifice will be detachment, sannyas. But what is sannyas? What do we do in ISKCON if someone gives us this? Are we saying, no, not interested? It's all very materialistic. People die for these things. I'm no interest in this. Yes or no? Of course, we know that Prabhupada was not saying like this. Once he was shown a picture of one kind of famous yogi, impersonalist, whoever. And someone was giving him full tray notes, and he had like the expression of disgust on his face, and he was kind of pushing this tray away, and kind of, his body language was indicating that don't come near to me with this dirty money. I'm not interested. I don't even want to touch it. Give it to my secretary instead, right? And Prabhupada was laughing at this picture, and the disciples were laughing at this picture as well. And Prabhupada said, I have an idea. You put this tray together for me, and I will embrace this kind of tray with both hands, and you can take picture of me holding this tray with great excitement, because I know exactly how to use it in Krishna's service, right? So this is the kind of sannyas, the kind of renunciation which is advocated in chapter 5. It's not just dry renunciation for the sake of renunciation. No, it is renouncing everything in the service of the Lord, which means yukta vairagya, dedicating everything for Krishna's pleasure, right? And so by using everything in Krishna's pleasure, we purify our hearts. For example, how do we become purified from greed? By using wealth in Krishna's consciousness. How do we become free from lust? Narottam Das Thakur says, karma pravartane. That we can direct our energy in the service of the Lord. In this way, we can become purified from lust. And krodha, bhakti, dveshagani, and anger we can direct hate. That's full utilization of everything in Krishna consciousness. And so, of course, again, chapter 5 speaks about many more things. In my mind, it's kind of anartha nivriti chapter. Those who are familiar with this term, it's purification of the heart, because especially towards the end of this chapter, Krishna talks a lot about becoming free from kama and krodha and other things, but it's not artificially, it's by proper engagement in devotional service, we become renounced from all these troubles which stop us from developing our relationship with Krishna. And the last chapter for today will be Dhyana Yoga. And of course, Dhyana means meditation, and the object of meditation is Super Soul, Paramatma. And so again, chapter 5 was speaking about the purification of the heart. Why do we need to purify the heart? And chapter 6 describes the ultimate benefit of purifying the heart, which is connecting with the super soul in the heart, because only pure heart can allow us to connect with Krishna and dedicate ourselves fully in his service. And then the final verse of chapter 6 is very famous. Prabhupada quoted it a lot because it's a kind of leading verse to the most important part of Bhagavad Gita, which is Bhakti Yoga, starting with chapter 7. And this famous verse is Yatra, of all the yogis, the one who is abiding in me and dedicated his life to my service is the best of all, and he is very dear to me. Yoginam api sarvesham mad gatenantar atmana shadavan bhajate yomam samyuktatamomataha. And so we'll stop here and we'll continue tomorrow from chapter 7, opening chapter of Bhakti Yoga, part of Bhagavad Gita. And let's check if everyone is still with us and you and any questions. Or comments, or complaints, or suggestions.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, very nice class, very good analysis.
Thank you.
I had one question on the karma, where you said one should do their own duties. It is good to do your own duties imperfectly than do somebody else's duties perfectly. Why is this? Like, because if you are able to do something else perfectly, that means you are meant to do that, isn't it? You are good at that, which is why you are able to do it perfectly. Or maybe I misunderstood the whole point of this verse.
Yeah, that's a good question. Why Bhagavad Gita is discouraging us from doing something perfectly, even though we can do it, but if it is not our nature. You see, because if you're doing something perfectly, which is not in line with your nature, but because, if you do something like that, you cannot enjoy the process at all. You will have to force yourself to do that. And the only motivation will be fruits. But because fruits are temporary, that this activity will not give you permanent benefit. This activity will not purify your heart. Of course, sometimes Prabhupada explains that there are different types of duties, 3 types of duties. That is in chapter 2. Can't remember the number of the verse, but this is very famous verse. Karmani vadikaraste ma palishu kadachana ma karma palahedurpur mate sangospa karmani. Very powerful verse, which says, and that, by the way, is another indication that Let me check quickly. What's the number? So Krishna says, Karmani vadikaraste, that you should do everything just for me and and never expect any results for yourself. And normally, like we're so used to it, if we cannot get any results, can you see the screen, the database screen? No?
Right, we see the slide screen even now.
Or only slides? Okay. So anyway, I'll try to find for you this. Oh yeah, 247, very famous verse. So Krishna says, it's like one of our senior Vaishnavas, Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, he explained that Bhagavad Gita is only talking about duties. And some people might wonder, what about rights, human rights? For God's sake, it's like one of the most important topics in the modern world. So what Bhagavad Gita has to say about rights? Does it say anything about rights? And yes, this is the verse in which Krishna talks about human rights. So he says, "Oh Arjuna, you have a right to perform your prescribed duty." So whole Bhagavad Gita is talking about duties, but when it comes to rights, he says, okay, your right is to perform your duty, but then you are not entitled to the fruits of your action. And that's pretty terrible, right? You work, but then when it comes to salary, you get nothing. You renounce. And that's pretty hard for most people. Some people do that because they think, okay, I'll give the results of my work to Krishna, but at least I want to be acknowledged and appreciated as someone who, right? At least that subtle satisfaction I want to have. Then in the next line, Krishna says, Ma karma phala heturbur. Do not consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities. So it's even harder. That don't even like claim the renunciation part. Never claim that, okay, you were the cause of your results and then you gave the results, right? And then when people hear about this, you cannot have gross benefit, you cannot even have subtle benefit. Oh, I won't be doing that then. But then in the end, Krishna says, Mata Sangos Vakarmani, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So do not try to evade your duty. And if you think about it, this is the only position which possible if you act according to your nature. And Prabhupada explains very nice purport to this verse. He says, there are three types of duties: prescribed duties, capricious work, and inaction. And prescribed duties are enjoined in terms of the once acquired modes of nature. Capricious work means actions without the sanction of authority, and inaction means not performing one's prescribed duties. The Lord advises that Arjuna not be inactive, but that he perform his prescribed duty without being attached to the result. One who is attached to the result of his work is also the cause of the action. Thus, he is the enjoyer of sufferer of the result of such actions. So basically, this part of the purport explains that the only proper is rejected, it's passion, action is ignorance. So all these are thrown out of the window. So let's focus on prescribed duties, which are in terms of the modes of material modes of nature we acquire in this lifetime. So yeah, as Krishnananda Maharaj very wonderfully put it. Your karma is your dharma, right? The karma you have, dharma is to dedicate that karma to the service of the Supreme Lord. And so he then speaks about three different divisions of prescribed duties: routine work, emergency work, and desired activities, right? Routine work, it's an obligation in terms of the scriptural injunctions without desire for results, and that's mode of goodness. Work with results become because of bondage, therefore such work is not auspicious. Everyone has his proprietary right in regard to prescribed duties, but should act without attachment to the results. Such disinterested obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. So it's kind of maybe a little bit difficult to understand, but again, it's the same thing. Prabhupada just explains the same point from different angles. He says, if you act according to your nature and dedicate that in the service of the Lord, then you can actually afford that, being detached from the results. And then he also speaks about emergency work. He doesn't elaborate on this, but emergency work, we can understand that, it's like war, for example, right? That no matter who you are, you might be an engineer or worker or office clerk or whoever you are, war means war. Everyone takes the weapon up and fights with the enemy, right? Like British government now declared war on coronavirus, and so they encourage even retired NHS workers to come back and help out. And so quite a few, I think it's like retired and also like students, last year students, medical students, they're also called to do their duty. So that's emergency. That's something you don't normally do, but because the situation puts a lot of pressure, you have to do that, right? So, but emergency cannot last forever. I mean, let's see how much the coronavirus will last. But, this emergency situation, the longer it will last, the harder it will become for people, right? Because emergency is emergency and you're just waiting to get out of it. So I hope that kind of gives some answer, but if it's not, we can further elaborate on that.
Thank you, Maharaj. I think it explains. Thank you.
Okay, too much to think about, right?
No, it is good. Very nice. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else? Otherwise,
there is a question on the chat, Maharaj, from somebody called Shashi.
Okay.
I'll read it out. Says, for someone who doesn't have a spiritual master or who is not reached a stage to deserve a spiritual master, what she should do? Is Krishna consciousness without spiritual master not fruitful?
Yeah, well, when we just begin our process of Krishna consciousness, then automatically Srila Prabhupada becomes our, as it is defined, preeminent Shiksha Guru. Because Shiksha is the most important thing, right? Diksha is following Shiksha. That's why the most important person in ISKCON is Srila Prabhupada, because all of us, gurus and disciples, follow his instructions, read his books, etc. In order to be a guru, you have to represent Srila Prabhupada, right? And so, yeah, we need to focus on Srila Prabhupada's instructions, how to please Srila Prabhupada, and then the best way to understand it is to get guidance and advice from experienced devotees, right? Prabhupada disciples, those who've spent many, many years in serving Srila Prabhupada and who have not just theoretical knowledge, but a lot of practical experience. And so, yeah, because, you know, if we just accept Srila Prabhupada as Shiksha Guru and we're so proud that we think I do not require anyone else, I can understand Srila Prabhupada perfectly myself and serve him perfectly myself, that's a little bit different from reality, because if we're so proud, we can't really learn anything. Because the first two qualities of knowledge, as it is indicated in chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, starting from text 8, you can check the quote, is amanitvam and adambitvam, which is, amanitvam means literally no desire to kind of, you know, because money means, in Sanskrit at least, like decoration, and why people put decorations on their body to kind of show off, right? So show themselves off. So amanitva means no desire to show oneself off, right? That I think, let me see how Prabhupada translated that. But it's very interesting that he provides with Sanskrit terms, translations to help us have deeper insight in the meaning of the verses. So, yeah, basically, yeah, it's humility, amanitvam, right? He translates amanitvam as humility, but this is literal meaning that no desire to show yourself off. And then adambitvam, because dambha means pride, right? So no pride. And so if someone has this desire to show off and very proud of oneself, one can't really learn anything, yeah? Because one thinks, oh, I know already everything. No one can teach me anything, right? And then I'll be using Prabhupada's quotes to teach everyone what Krishna consciousness is, and unfortunately these kind of cases are rampant in our society. You know, it's like the more the society grows, the more all different types of deviations also appear. And this is one of the deviations, that people think that I have Srila Prabhupada, I don't require anyone else or anything else for my advancement in Krishna consciousness. But even in Prabhupada times, when devotees were speaking like that, Prabhupada was, you know, cutting them down. And he was saying, no, it's not enough. You need devotee association, serving devotees. Okay? Is it helping to understand, to figure out? Okay.
Yes, Maharaj, the response in the chat, it says,
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, good. All right, anything else?
Maharaj, Dinesh here. Thank
Okay.
you for this class. Just building on from the previous question, not the one about the guru, but the previous one.
Uh-huh.
How does one know that what is his prescribed duty?
Yeah, as we mentioned, your karma is your dharma. And so your karma is connected to your duties. And yeah, it's connected to your nature. But sometimes it's a little difficult to figure out our nature, because many times we have mixed natures in Kali Yuga. But nevertheless, it is important. And even though we might have some mixes, we still might have base nature, fundamental nature, and basically speaking, it means certain things will give us a lot of pleasure, like Shudra will naturally, he will not even care whom to serve, as long as he can serve someone. Shudra will not be able to take responsibility for one's life. He will be just, looking up at the master to tell him what to do, what not to do, right? So Shudra is very dependent position. One who doesn't have enough brain power, as Prabhupada explains, to take responsibility for one's own life. And Vaishya means, you'll be enjoying making money, developing economy, all these things. Also taking care of cows and land. So that's Vaishya. And then Kshatriya means naturally you will have a desire to control people, but not just for selfish purposes, just to give them protection, shelter. Desire to give others shelter, that's Kshatriya's nature. And of course, Brahmana's nature is learning, knowledge and spiritual practices. So yeah, most of the devotees have Brahminical nature. Yeah, is that answering anything?
Yeah, it does answer. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, I know it's a big topic, so we would not be able to discuss it. Actually, I think last time I've been at South London, we've done few classes just on this topic alone, understanding your nature and acting according to your nature.
Okay.
Yes, Maharaj, one of them was in our home, our ashram. We had a little session.
Yeah.
Session, yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, I was not fortunate enough to attend that. So hopefully sometime in future, I'll get to hear from you on that subject, Maharaj.
But maybe some recordings are available on YouTube. You can check it out if you want.
Okay, will do.
Yeah. So, anything else? Or I think we should be coming to a natural close because it's nearly 9 o'clock. And despite of the lockdown, you still want to take early rest and get up early before Brahma Muhurta to chant your rounds properly and then dedicate your day to studying Prabhupada's books, listening to classes, serving the deities, and then doing whatever household duties. Yeah? Okay, so thank you all very much, and we'll see and hear you again tomorrow, right? At the same time.
Thursday, Maharaj.
Oh yeah, it's not tomorrow.
Thursday, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you'll have 1 day break from Sagar Swami. And then we'll resume that on Thursday, which is very good for you.
Thank you so much. It was very wonderful class. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank
you, Maharaj.
Jai.
Wonderful class. Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you,
Srila
Maharaj.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta
Hare Krishna, everyone.
ki jai.
Jai.
Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gaur Premanand.
Hari Hari Bol Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Bol.
Okay. Hare